In this update, for the skill tree update, they've made a load of bug fixes to Tower Defense Simulator. Some of them have been listed on the news section here, however not all of them have been. An example of a bug fix that they've made that they've not made to the update log is the additional category for titles and stickers here. Now, it doesn't affect me, it never affected me because I used the PC. However, if you used the mobile, there was actually an additional category for titles and stickers. Menton actually reported this to me and I reported it onto the public bug report spreadsheet. But as you can see here, you can see the additional crate here, which refers to crates, obviously. However, in the game, it actually opened up the title section as seen here, and there was another one at the very bottom that opened up stickers. However, these categories were broken. As you can see here, Menton has Krampus sticker selected. However, he does not have the option to equip it, and the same for the titles. He doesn't have an option to equip it here either. This is because the categories are fake. No, the way that you enable titles is to go all the way to the bottom of tags, and it'll be here, titles, as seen here. Same for stickers, it's in the emote section, so you have to scroll all the way down to the emote section here. Here are your stickers. Likely, this is a legacy of testing, a private testing server which had stickers and titles as separate things. However, for whatever reason, on mobile aspect ratios, it showed these additional titles because I can't lie, the testing for mobile on Tower Defense Simulator doesn't seem to be as adequate as it should be. Even though I'm pretty sure there's a significant amount of the player base that only exclusively plays on mobile. Yet stuff like these are a commonplace in Tower Defense Simulator. There are a whole load of mobile-only bugs, especially when it comes to aspect ratio. In fact, even with the new update, there was an issue where if your aspect ratio for your screen is too small, the gems section here, it'll get cut off by the screen. This is quite poor from a developmental studio who claims to have rigorously tested all of these updates on devices. And given mobile is quite popular, I would expect them to test the mobile experience, not only those who have a baller PC, the best specs on the market, like the best MacBooks, whatever like that. However, I can't lie, stickers and titles should be their own thing on this bar here, because they are listed under tags and emotes, which they are not that, I can't lie. Plus, if you have a load of emotes and a load of name tags in Tower Defense Simulator, you will forget that title, and stickers exist because you have to scroll all the way down to the bottom to see them. I can guess why they're not their own separate tags, mostly because this would get cluttered up and having a load of features here would probably confuse a load of new players to Tower Defense Simulator. And additionally, stickers and titles, they probably aren't numerous enough to have their own tags. But that being said, charms have their own tags. And there are significantly less charms than there are titles in Tower Defense Simulator, and quite a similar amount of stickers. So genuinely, I think they should be their own separate thing. Next is a bug fix for the medic and interactions with certain towers. Previously, when the medic was combined with a tower, that was the Flea, the Beast Jester, the Biologist Tower, the Springtime Cowboy, the Duck Rocketeer, the Dark Necromancer, Ducky DJ Booth, Mecha Bunny Cowboy, and the Swarmer, the medic would break. So the ability would not be able to cleanse any tower if any of these towers that I've just mentioned were in range of the medic. Now, it was pretty random. Sometimes it actually did cleanse, but only certain towers. And it's not these towers that you're thinking of. Like, it was just a buggy mess of a tower. In fact, it still kind of is. It still uses a very old model, which the developers actually showed off in the trailer. In fact, Menton suspects that they only fixed the medic because they showed it off in the trailer and they realized, oh wait, parts of the medic are broken when they interact with certain towers, such as the Flea. Let's just fix that. However, I'm not entirely sure, because they've also fixed the medic interaction with these towers, as mentioned previously. The Flea, the Beast Jester, Biologist, Springtime Cowboy, Duck Rocketeer, Duck Necromancer, Ducky DJ Booth, Mecha Bunny Cowboy, and Swarmer, because when you're using the medic on it, it didn't have these effects appear. So, for context, it didn't have the big plus that appears, or nor did it have the aura that could be seen around cleansed towers. This has now been fixed, and the reason why these towers actually have a weird interaction with the medic is because they're not actually a proper humanoid. They don't have a torso, arm, legs, in the sense that these towers do have a torso, arms, legs, stuff like that. Now, according to the developers, it's because of the new rig or new stuff that Roblox have added for like humanoids. I'm not entirely sure what's so different about them, but they do have weird interactions with stuff like the medic. And in fact, there are other bugs that are associated with this that the developers have not fixed. So, for example, they can't get stunned by attacks that are fired out from a laser from miniguns, like the Legacy Pingu, the Legacy Templar, Warden, Gunslinger, Minigunner, Nuclear Monster Beam, etc., but these are only from legacy enemies. So I'd say we're about a fifth of the way there from fixing one of the most broken skins in Tower Defense Simulator. Also, the Duck Necromancer still can't be stunned, which is, I find, very unique. Next, there was an issue with the Elementalist where if you used the Ice Turret and then you sold the Elementalist, the Ice Turret would actually stay around. However, as you can see, developers have now fixed it. I'd assume they fixed it because it could be easily abused. I mean, you would have to have a lot of Elementalists placed down, but you can very easily see how you could macro the Elementalist just by buying the Elementalist, placing down an Ice Turret, and then selling it. To be fair, I'm surprised that the Ice Turret method of replenishing it didn't happen more often, given the fact that the DPS for the Ice Turret was 97.4, effectively 100. Maybe it's because the Elementalist isn't such a versatile tower outside of that one glitch compared to the Mercenary base, which also does have a similar issue where if you sell the tower, the units that spawned in from the airdrop don't despawn. However, the Mercenary base has its use outside of this as well, such as the damage buffs, and also it has a tower limit of 3, which allows you to use that damage buff on other towers. But given the Elementalist has now been fixed, I'd say that the Mercenary base glitch, where you macro its ability, would probably be fixed in the near future as well. Because do bear in mind that with the skill tree update, I think Solo Pellucid Wastelands 2 without the Mercenary base glitch is slightly possible. Not entirely sure how possible it is, I'm not entirely sure if anyone has done it without the Mercenary base glitch, but the Cure title is definitely achievable now, or at least it's more achievable than it was before. Next, there was an issue where the Field Medic was able to protect the Missile APC, the Ice Turret, Sunflower, Ivy, and Nightshade. However, this no longer occurs. It is because the Field Medic actually has a blacklist. So by default, any new units to Tower Defense Simulator, the Field Medic can actually heal it and protect it. However, for a unit not to be part of that, it has to be blacklisted. But because the Field Medic is only meant for humanoid units, it means that these units here, these are technically units, the Ivy, the Nightshade, and the Sunflower, they need to be on that blacklist, which the developers failed to do after these additions. And for the longest while, the Missile APC was on that blacklist, but the Missile APC wasn't. Most likely because the developers forgot about it. Which, I mean, it's not the first time that developers have forgot about the Missile APC, because the Gunner APC is available to be spawned into sandbox mode, but the Missile APC isn't unless you do it through the commander. Next, there was an issue with the Fallen Missile APC where you could actually collide with it. However, the developers have fixed it in this update, which they haven't mentioned in the public bug reports, at least. I think they may have mentioned it in the update log. They have mentioned it with the update log. Very cool. They didn't mention the Field Medic not healing the Nightshade, Ivy, or the Sunflower, though. Next, there was an issue with the stranded max level medic, which didn't have any animations, it just rotated around, and it didn't have any gun sounds. However, the developers have now fixed this in this update, as you can see. Next, there was an issue with the particle emitters in the spooky DJ booth, where, as you can see here, they are actually visible. They are meant to be invisible because this is where the particles are emitted from the DJ booth. Has to be separate from the model, but they have now fixed it so it's no longer visible. Next, the developers have fixed the Bloxy Commander not having its sparkle effects, except it still doesn't have the unique animation where if you place it down, it's meant to have like a unique sound and a sparkle effect there. However, at max level, it does get its sparkle effect back. However, there is still an issue with the Bloxy Commander. As mentioned, when you place it down, it doesn't have its unique sound effect nor unique visual effects. But more importantly than that, the visual of the commander, when you upgrade it to silver status, which is level 3, it still has the bronze Roblox logo and the bronze Luger. These are both meant to be silver, and when you upgrade it to gold, it's still the case where this is still bronze and the Roblox logo is also still bronze. Now, the Roblox logo is meant to be silver, while the Luger is meant to be golden. So the developers still have not got round to fixing this. Granted, it is a tower that is exclusive and you can no longer get it, but what happens if Tower Defense Simulator were to win an innovation award in the next award ceremony? I will be there, developers, so you better fix the Bloxy Commander, just saying, it's a good omen. Next, there was an issue where the max level Spooky Crook Boss did not have a muzzle flash, however the developers have now fixed it. However, muzzle flashes in the game, they're more common with their issues. In the public bug report, we have about 15 different issues stemming from muzzle flashes. So, like, for example, the Hunter Tower doesn't have a muzzle flash. The Tommy Goon 2 doesn't have a muzzle flash. The Stealth Ops Soldier doesn't have a muzzle flash. All of these have incorrect positioning of their muzzle flashes. I mean, these image issues are so comical that the Galactic Commander muzzle flash is actually sideways to where it's meant to be. You can see it's on a perpendicular angle. While I find that extremely funny, of course, it just shows that muzzle flashes, I mean, to be fair, I don't think they're too high on the priority list, but muzzle flashes, there are a whole load of issues of them in the game. Next, there was an issue with the Holiday Minigunner whereby it didn't have any firing effects between level 0 and level 2. However, the developers have now fixed it. Yeah, they have. I just had my sound on silent, that's why. But yeah, you can hear it, hopefully, that they have fixed it. And finally, for the accelerator, the overcharged value stated for the last level on the upgrade box used to say 4,600. However, the developers have now fixed it correctly to show 4,800.